Alright, this is another project I picked up. Another Craigslist find. This is a 2003 Honda XR100R. And the listing said that it was stuck between third and fourth gear. And it didn't say much else. And they said they wanted to sell it by Christmas. And so I called about 3 days before Christmas, and guy still had it. Went up, took a look at it. Actually, it was a young lady who owned it, and her friend was helping her sell it. But anyways, I got up there and thought maybe that I'd be able to somehow get the engine at least started and hear the motor run. But I quickly found out that what they meant by stuck in gear was they meant it was basically completely locked up. So I had some concerns about whether the engine was seized. But then I quickly found that even with pulling the clutch lever in, the wheel wouldn't run. So it definitely seemed like it was transmission related. But what I couldn't figure out was why, if it was transmission related, why couldn't I pull the clutch in and get the Kickstarter to move? So this was on muddy ground. So as far as trying to actually force the issue, the guy basically said he didn't want to push it, try and pop start it, do anything like that, and see if it would pop out of where it was jammed up. So I loaded it up on the truck, got a really good deal on it, in my opinion, even if I just use it for a parts bike, and got it home, took it out on the little asphalt patch at the end of the driveway where I could get the wheel to grip a little more, and decided to start pushing it back and forth, seeing what would happen. And lo and behold, all of a sudden I was able to get it to pop free, and then the gear shift lever started to work, and I was able to actually roll it. And once I rolled it, I was able to only kick it once, and then it no longer wanted to kick. So now what we've got here is a broken Kickstarter assembly. Something's wrong with the Kickstarter. So the good news is now the transmission seems to be working. So since that seemed to be the only issue now, I decided to try and pop start it. I tried to pop start it, and it actually started. It ran for a couple of seconds and then died. Just like count of 1, 2, and then died. During that short time that it was running, it's possible that it died because I didn't work the clutch, the choke quick enough. But also I did hear some drivetrain noise, some engine noise, something that didn't sound right. So I'm kind of glad I didn't get it running, because I would have been tempted to go and try and drive it and may have done more damage. So my theory right now is that something in the Kickstarter mechanism has broken, and that parts of the mechanism are loose inside the engine case and transmission area, and that maybe at some point they were jammed in where the shifting drum is, and that may have been causing all of these issues. But the obvious first move is to get this case opened up and see what we can see, and that entails basically draining out the oil first. And I'm going to be really curious to see how much oil is in there and what the condition of the oil is. The oil that I drained off this crankcase is the consistency of water, and I think it's got a strong gasoline smell to it. Next I want to move this skid plate out of the way, which looks like it's supposed to be held in by a bolt and nut configuration here and here. This one appears to be missing. It almost looks like this is a slotted back here, so that when you loosen this up, you can take this out. So I can see how if this was loose, it would just vibrate out. And I think if you take those out, you might be able to swing this down without actually taking this front motor mount bolt completely out. Well, maybe that isn't a nut that comes out from a slot in the back. That looks like that is just part of the actual motor crankcase. A threaded hole on the bottom. This is badly bent, this bolt. So that's par for the course. That's what skid plate's for. Take all the punishment. And I just pulled it down a little bit. And I was able to flex it down just enough where I can probably now get to the bolt head down there. You know what? It's still going to be kind of in the way here. And I can't pull it down any further because it hits right here on the front of the frame. So I'm just going to pop this bolt out. Okay, got the skid plate out of the way. Now we can easily get to this bolt head here. And turns out, now that I got the skid plate off and I take a better look at it, don't even need to get that one out because that's part of where you split the crankcase. This one here and this one here have to come out. It's going to be easy to get to them though, so still a good idea to take the skid plate off. And then the other good news is this was all impacted with dirt. This was filled with dirt right here. And the reason why I'm glad to see that is because that tells me that these guys didn't take this cover off and try and figure out what was wrong with this thing. Because I'd much rather have the thing break and have them not know what to do about it and buy it and fix it myself, rather than come along after somebody took it apart and tried working on it and maybe made things worse, or when they put things back together, they didn't put them back together in the right order, which oftentimes when I'm not working with a service manual makes it kind of tough to work on when somebody else has already taken it apart. So now let's see, I don't think the brake lever is going to be in the way here. Maybe it will. We'll have to see. I'm going to start taking out as many of these bolts as I can to see how far I can get before something else gets in the way. Well, was able to get a wrench and loosen every single one of them except for this one down here. This rear brake lever is in the way, so I'm going to get this rear brake lever out of the way. So I think what I'm going to end up doing here is first I'm going to remove the tension on it by releasing this spring from right here, and then I don't think I'm going to even have to bother disconnecting the linkage. I can just drop this out of the way a little bit. So this bolt right here and nut on the back side is the pivot point, so if I pull that out I should be able to move this out of the way just enough. I don't even need to undo this spring. It's just a matter of removing this bolt, which is easy because the nut on the back side here is actually tack welded to the frame, and then loosening this bolt here drops your foot peg out of the way, and then this whole thing just pops right out of the way, and now I can get to that no problem. Okay, 9 bolts hold this cover on. 6 of them are the same size, this size here. And then this one right here is extra long. So that's this one right here. This one right here is extra short. Right here. And then this guy up here on the back is medium. Actually just a tiny bit longer than the real shorty. So the shortest one's here, second shortest one is there, longest one is here, and the other 6 are the same. Now we want to go to put it back together, I'll know which ones go where. Getting this cover to break free. You don't want to be jamming a screwdriver in there, you might damage the mating surface of the gasket. So there's this hunk of metal that sticks out proud of the whole thing. That's a great point to grab onto, and what I did was I just grabbed, I got my big framing hammer handy, and it works right in there like that, and just pop it up against the frame there and popped it up, and you can see I've got it broken free on this side. So now I'm going to see whether or not that moves up, and I suspect that maybe this shaft has to stay behind. If that's the case, I'm going to have to remove the Kickstarter lever off the shaft before I can slide this up any further and off. Also, I've still got my linkage for my clutch attached. I forgot about that. I started to pull the drain hose from the bottom of the carburetor bowl out, but I wanted to show what position it's in. It actually goes in front of the clutch lever, clutch cable right here, and then it goes down into the swing arm frame section down in there. But I want to get this out of my way, so I'm just going to route it over here for now. And then, looks like if I push up on the lever here, I might be able to, let's see. Alright, that part of the clutch cable actually threads into this little bracket, and the bracket looks like it might just be bolted on right here. Oh, that's actually captive. That's held captive by another bolt, motor mount bolt. Is the nut right there, but that bolt looks like it goes all the way through to the other side there. Well, taking the Kickstarter lever off is a piece of cake. There's actually a point there on the end where you could put a puller on if you had to pull it off, but if you take the bolt all the way out, it slides right off. At least this one does. But what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the position it's actually on right now, because I want to kind of know when I go to put it back on where's the optimum place to put it. So I'm going to take a measurement from here to here. I haven't really completely removed this yet, so if I take a measurement from here to here, that'll give me an idea of how I've got that on there. Alright, so we'll call it 1 3/8 from this front face on the Kickstarter lever when it's in the stowed position to the back of this pivot point for the clutch lever. Upon closer examination, the end of the clutch cable where it actually engages this part of the lever is actually a slot. So what you do is if you push up on this and then push that out, that little piece right there on the end actually slides right out, and now that is completely, I don't have to mess with the bracket or the cable at all, which is great. I don't even have to mess with that clutch adjustment for now. So now I should be able to get this whole cover off with a little bit more gentle persuasion. Okay, shimmy, wiggle, and then you get the clutch cover off. And the bit of bad news I see right off the bat is that it sure looks like you can't really do anything with the Kickstarter mechanism as far as the kind of problem that I'm having with it from here, because basically it looks like all of the meat and potatoes of that mechanism are going to be behind this partition here, which is the outer side of this side of the crankcase. So that's a real bummer. Well, I'm going to release this Kickstarter spring from its captive position right there and take the tension off of that whole mechanism. Let's see, does the spring come off now when I do that? Maybe not. And then the other thing was, would the shaft come out now? Not at all. So looks like I'm going into the crankcase. Either that or that's all accessible from the cover on the other side. A possibility. Yeah, gonna have to split the crankcase, which means dropping this motor out of the frame. Oh well. I am going to take this cover off though, because I want to see whether or not this is where I can unplug this. Internal to here might be where I can unplug this wiring harness from the engine. Alright, 5 bolts hold this cover on. This is the only bolt that's a little bit longer than the other 4. Oh good. That looks like that's how that came out. So you get a strain relief type deal here, and then it looks like take that Allen head screw out, and I can remove this pickup coil, and that'll stay behind with the wiring harness. Well, so much for that idea. there's another, once you move this pickup out of the way, there's another cable right behind it that goes to the, probably a stator alternator type deal underneath here. So that ain't going to be able to be removed unless I want to pull this, which I may end up having to do that anyways. Still don't know how to split the case on this, but that led me to believe that maybe there's something I'm missing up here, which if I follow this all the way up under here, I can see that the insulation stops, and I can see the wires, and they go into this little rubber sleeve. I'd be willing to bet there's a disconnect right there. So I'm going to take a look at that now.